Thank you very much. And I would want this to be an interactive session. So what I'll do is I'll quickly finish off with whatever I have to say. I don't have too many messages to give you. It's all there inside your blood. It is there in our genetics. We have 17,000 years of continuous civilization in our country, and we don't need to again and again repeat things and get it embedded inside you. But let me tell you, children, you have a bright future. Don't get put up by whatever is happening around. We are a rising nation. We have one of the largest young population in the world. We have great challenges ahead. I mean, what else do you want? You are a rising nation. You have challenges ahead, and we have a young population, and we are a software giant. So what else do you want for a nation? So don't worry about getting a job or getting the right job. You worry about going in the right direction. That is what I will cover in this lecture. So that is a bright future we have got. Now, how do you, as a young person, grow? How do you, as a young person, decide that what should be your way forward? First of all, the first thing, actually, I was fortunate. I did not get this opportunity when I was as young as you, but yes, when I left army in 2009 and I was in Bharat Electronics, I got an opportunity to attend a course called as Born to Win. The course itself, that name itself is so positive. It is so full of positive energy that it speaks about itself. And in that, there was one session that I remember, and I want to share that experience. And that is why, you see, I'll keep on telling you stories. Don't get bored with it, but that's my way of conveying things. I mean, we are a culture who has lived in stories. Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything is a story, and we have lived in stories. And that's what I believe, that when I have to get a point across, I have to tell you a story. So, in this session that we had on Born to Win, there was one small module in which we had to write down, right from a young age till now, what has been our greatest achievement. And when they say achievement, it is not that what we were rewarded for. By achievement, the meaning was told that what you felt inherently inside, that was good, and you were happy, you were deeply happy about it. So he gave us 2 days. Mind you, there were so many subjects to be covered, but those 2 days fitting just to discover your strengths were a very big. We thought that how much time will it take? It will take about 5 minutes to list down the achievements. All of us, there were about 40 of us. We had been divided into five groups, and we sat down, and we were allowed to do group discussion and ask each other, and so we listed down few things, and I mean, there was not even one guy in the class who could fill more than half a page. And then, towards the end of the session, he took all our sheets, and then he started recounting his own life. And he recounted a few things about his childhood, about his growing up in the school, about his even a small event like having done a good debate without having appreciated it. Like there was an event, he told that there was a free period, and the PT teacher told that, okay, class monitor, you get up and give a debate on whatever topic you want. So he had given a debate. He not a debate, actually, it was just a extempore speech, and he said that it was a proud moment for me because that was the first time that I was standing up. I was speaking in front of those 30 classmates of mine, and all of them were awake throughout. I mean, it was surprising. He said that none of them did not sleep off my lecture, and he said it came out naturally from me. and and that is why he chose that line. He first joined the army. He was in the army, and then later on. So that's a separate part of the story. But every one of us have done things in life which would not have earned us degrees, which would not have earned us appraisals from our from our teachers, our superiors, but and which would not have been in front of anybody else. We would have been doing it all alone. But those are the events that make up your life, that identify you as a person. So it's very important to discover your strengths, who you are, all the acts that make you proud of and that give you joy. I'm not talking about happiness. There's a difference between happiness and joy. Joy is something that is inside, that comes from inside. I'll tell you another story about joy. So once I had gone to Haridwar, and it was winters. It was December, and during December, Haridwar becomes very cold. It's close to the mountains, and many of you would have seen it. And there was a friend of mine, both of us, and I'm an enthusiast. I always like going to Haridwar, taking dip in the Ganga, and next to that. Har Ki Pauri, and it is always a great thing, you know. You see the poorest of India, you see the best of India, you see the saddest of India, you see the happiest of India, you see the entire country there. So, and I make it a point every 1 month or 2 months I go there. Okay, due to Corona, it was restricted, but then, so while walking towards the Ghat, I take a hotel nearby so that I can see the Ganga throughout and through my window, and then. So I'm a very I was an artist at one point of time, so I paint also and do all those things. So then, while walking down, I saw, it was just a glance that I saw that there was an old woman who was wearing all kind of ragtag clothes, and she was blind. And she was just sitting on the corner, and people were throwing some coins to her and all that. And she was shivering actually. Her hands were shivering, and not only her hands, her teeth were also shivering. Generally, when I go to Haridwar, I take a dip in the morning. That is the morning arti. That's 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then in the evening at 6:30. So both the Ganga artis I do. Now, in the month of December, in the morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, it's very cold. And this woman was outside, so probably she would not have slept. She was a very old woman, maybe about 60 years old or 65 years old. And I went, had the tip, came back, and while I was walking back, a idea struck me that why don't I give this woman something? And at that point of time, no shops are open. But there was one shop where the owner was sleeping outside. It was a small shop of clothes. The owner was sleeping outside. So I requested him that, sir, he was not even the owner. He was probably his servant. He made me talk to his owner. We opened the store, and I got the best warm cloth. I mean, in Haridwar, of course, in that area, you won't get a very good quality. But the best one which he had, I bought it. And then I went to that woman, and I told, and I took over that ragtag, something she had, buri type ka kuch cheez tha, jo wo she was wearing, some very ragtag kind of a thing. I took it off, and I put this shawl around her, and it gave me joy. There were tears in my eyes. Even today, when I think about it, I'm finding it hard to stop those tears. That is joy. So all acts, while discovering yourself, all acts that have made you get that joy is what is important, to discover yourself, discovering yourself. Uh, you can discover by identifying patterns. I mean, I can take a whole day telling you how you can discover your strengths, who inspires you, who are the people. It inspires me to watch Amitabh Bachchan in Sarkar Raj say that मैं वही वही करता हूँ जो मुझे ठीक लगता है. It can come from anywhere, you know. What are the things that you see that you can do which others cannot do? Something that is special in you, something that you feel that you are very good at. And what are the things that give you sleepless night? I mean, there might be some event in your life. I mean, you are in your second years, and there might be sleepless nights you would have spent over some problem. It may be a problem given by a teacher in the school. It may be a problem by somebody else. So I remember one such incident in my 10th class. We used to have a story by Kushwant Singh called as Portrait of a Lady. Actually, I've got weakness for old women, like 65 years old. My nani was closest to me. So whenever I read about old women, I actually शरत शरत प्रणाम करता हूँ कि उन्होंने अपनी मदरहुड पूरी की, हम लोगों को जन्म दिया, और उसके बाद से वो मतलब फिर ओल्ड एज में उनको बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं. तो when I went that portrait of a lady, there was a task given to us by the teacher that you have to write a précis on it. Précis means you have to compress it, summarize it, and give it to us tomorrow. I did not sleep the whole night. It was so exciting to just read it, read that story, and Kushwant Singh had written it with lot of passion in it. You could feel the silver hairs on that old lady, her problems in walking, her love towards her grandson, and the rebuke she used to get from the parents for spoiling her grandson, and all those things. I felt that how can I capture it in 1,000 words? Or rather, it was, I think, 500 words. It was too less. We had to write a very small 2-paragraph system. Whole night I kept on weighing on those words. So those were the things that, you know, so that is how you discover things that give you sleepless nights. And then while discovering your edge, you will, we are fortunate that we have a lot of inspiring personalities in our own country, like Dr. Abdul Kalam, E. Sridharan, the Metro Man, Dr. Ramanujan, the discoverer of the divergence theorem. In the 1900s, he had discovered the divergent mathematics, which is now being applied to calculate the event horizon of the black hole. I mean, imagine what kind of a country we are. And then you have to always believe. This belief has to go deep inside you that that there is a bright tomorrow. That this life is not going to be over in a flash. That we are the most intelligent species on this planet, and we have got a responsibility. That there was everything that has been done till now, all the developments, all the things that we have achieved as a human race has been done by us. And that belief has to go deep inside you. And once that belief goes deep inside you, you will never get transgressed from your direction. That you will get the right direction. So that was discovering the edge inside you. And after discovering the edge, you come to creating a vision. Now you know that, okay, I'm strong in, let's say, for example, I'll tell you, I'm a voracious writer. Okay, I'm writing a book. In probably a year or two, I'll come out with a China book where I predict that the Great War between India and China. In fact, I'd been writing it for the last 14 to 20 years because my dad was also in the army. He has seen the 1962 war, and he has seen the humiliation faced by a country, and probably that has gone into my genes. So I took it upon myself after discovering my strengths that yes, I can somehow cut paste करके भी, or there is some internal motivation also that I can write. And so after that you create your vision. Okay, how do you create a vision? Vision is one thing that you will be ready to give your life for. In the army, we are taught about it. I mean, in the army, it's very natural. I mean, your 12th pass, you go into a National Defense Academy as a kid. I mean, I've never seen a college life. You guys are very, 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 very lucky that you're seeing a college life. College life matures you because there is one NDA entry in the Indian Army, and there is a IMA entry in the Indian Army. The IMA guys come out of college, and I find them very much more matured. And I used to always recommend the training guys in the Indian Army. There is MP5 branch in Army Headquarters, Sena Bhavan, where you can actually go in and tell them that, look, there should be some kind of a merger where you get the matured guy and still you are able to train them. But Army doesn't change so quick. So they take those things, they study it and all that. So, what is that one thing? So we used to be taught that Chetwood motto: the country comes first, always and every time. The menu command comes next, and you comes the last. So this Chetwood motto is drilled into us right from the first day that we go in, and the weapon, the army. And in fact, I would like to bring in one, in case some of you, if you would have seen that movie, American Sniper. That movie speaks about this person who is gone on tour of Afghanistan, and there is a $1 million, or I don't know exactly to remember the amount of money that terrorists have put on him because he has had 500, 600 kills as a sniper in Afghanistan. And after every tour, there is one PSTD kind of a syndrome that sets in, because when you see death very close, it impacts you. It's happened in my life where I was able to save few guys. It has happened in my life where I saw people who were very close to me die during Kargil, and it's a very different experience, having spent 3 years. I mean, imagine in college you have your best friend whom you confide everything, you have trust, and you lose him one day. I mean, it's a tragic thing that hits you deep inside. So this ready to give your life to achieve something comes out of this camaraderie. This feeling of oneness, this feeling of that, okay, my vision, I'll just try to describe it. My vision is to create a system or change the current problems in the system, and in whatever little ways I can, to make it more effective. I'm talking very corporate language, okay, but there can be very understandable forms of it. Like I will make it more just, so that the right people get awarded. Sometimes you will feel that in your class there are people who study more, who are brighter, who have a better nature, but they don't get rewarded. And there are people who are aloof, who never share knowledge with you, who are just focused on one thing, is that getting the top degree. And believe me, that doesn't help. So one vision can be that you will gain knowledge, you will grow rich in your experience. At the same time, you will be a good human being. The vision should be based on just cause. I will talk about just cause in a while, but just cause is very, very important. A vision is incomplete if it doesn't have a just cause. And that just cause can be anything. I will help out the poor. When I get money and I grow rich, I will help out the poor. The just cause can be, I will create a cancer drug that can cure, that doesn't require chemotherapy. It can be that I will be able to detect Alzheimer syndromes by creating an AI platform which will detect it 5 years ahead of its this thing. Just cause can be anything, or I will do something for the humanity, which will further make us believe in the goodness of humanity. It can be anything, but just cause has to be big. It has to, it cannot be a limited kind of a thinking, and it has to be tangible. So when I say tangible, it means that you should be able to know that there is, I can achieve it. There is a end state to it. For example, if you are creating an AI tool for decision support for, let's say, the Indian Army, where so I'll talk about this Galwan incident. So in Galwan incident, the true story will come out maybe 5 or 10 years hence, but there are a few things that I can tell you. In the Galwan incident, the first lot of people, about 100, 150 of them, along with Colonel Santosh Babu, they went to that area. The Chinese had ambushed that area, and they had put a small tent there, which was on our side of LAC, about 200 meters inside our side of the LAC. And Colonel Santosh Babu had just gone there to check, and there it is, weapons down, means you are holding your weapons with the nozzle facing downwards. It is in a lock condition. The magazine is not inside your weapons, it's inside your pouch. So you cannot actually, those are the orders. You cannot fire. Now these guys had inducted new troops over there. So generally their rangers are there, the border rangers, the border guard, sorry, border guard, the Chinese called it border guard, the Pakistanis called it rangers. And they had laid an ambush, and they pounced upon this party. It was a massacre kind of a thing. I mean, these three guys got killed. Colonel Santosh Babu lost his life there itself, because they were using those huge, thick, nail-based clubs. And the rest of the people, some of them fell down into the river Galwan, and there was no communication system there. So the Ghatak platoon, Ghatak is the commando platoon which is deployed along with all these infantry units, and their main task is to get into to contain an emergency. They heard it through voice, the people falling down into the river. Okay, about 70 of them, about 65 to 70 of them fell into the down the cliff, and the shouts and all that, and they were evacuated later. So this was the first round where the 150 guys went in, burnt the tent, and those guys pounced on them, and they inflicted casualty on us. After that, the Ghatak platoon went in, and Ghatak platoon is just about 35 to 40 guys. They are the super commandos. I mean, I have done commandos, I tell you, after 42 days of those commando course, it felt like you were made of steel. It felt like I could just punch my hand into a wall, and the wall will break. You are that strong. It's so that is the Ghatak platoon. It's composed of people ranging from 17 years to about 20 to 23 years. They are the super force. Every infantry battalion in the Indian Army has it. So 3 Punjab Ghatak platoon went in, and some of them killed 7, 8, 9, 10. The actual number of casualties were 150. The nation doesn't know about it. The Americans calculated 35. You talk to these guys who are watching China for a long time, like Colonel Ajay Shukla and all that, and we have a figure of 50 from them. But through my some sources who are close to the agencies in America, the actual bodies which were lifted from that area of the Chinese guys were 150. And So, why I wanted to tell you this incident was that when you are talking about a vision and you are seized with a problem that a nation is facing, then you tend to create solutions for it. Suppose we had a communication solution there. And these guys, the moment the ambush started, these guys alerted the Ghatak platoon, and the Ghatak platoon came earlier. Probably we would have saved more lives. Those 20 guys would have not died. And remember, in every battle in Kargil, we lost 527 people. In every battle, the people whom we lose are the heroes. They are the guys who faced the enemy bullet, who went ahead. They are the heroes. They will remain heroes throughout their lives. Whether they are alive or dead, they will always remain heroes. And they are the guys who are the strength of a nation. And they are the guys who are to be saved. Or let's say you have a tangible aim that I will create a medical kit which will give you the first aid plus, means at the place of the occurrence. If you use my medical kit, it will be able to give the soldier enough survival time so that he can be evacuated and treated in the hospital behind. These are great visions. I mean, these are the visions. This is how you create a personal visions. Company visions are different. I'm talking about personal visions. And after the visions have been created, at initially you may have multiple visions because it's not very easy to create visions. There are so many things that you will be interested in. After you have discovered your strengths, you may have two, three very good strengths and visions. So then you discover the purpose of your life, and that is very important. The purpose of your life can be serving the nation. The purpose of your life can be serving the humanity. Other than that, there can be no two other. You read about any scriptures, you read about anything, but your purpose cannot be anything different. But what you decide are either of the two. You fall back on your vision. That is how you are going to implement the purpose of your life. And the purpose of the life should be such that at the end of your life, I don't know if you have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan. At the end of it, Saving Private Ryan, in short, was about a group of 35 people who were sent in to save a soldier whose two other brothers had been killed in the World War II. And he was deep behind the enemy lines inside the German territory. And for saving his life, all these guys died. And when this guy came back, he throughout his life, and the movie starts with this scene. Actually, you should see this scene; it inspires you. He turns back and asks his wife, "Tell me that I have been a good man." So that is one thing that your purpose of the life should end at. That I have been a good person. I have done what I should have done. So that is about discovering your edge, knowing your strengths, vision, and purpose of your life. And then we come to the just cause. So I told you that I'll just give a small talk on just cause. Our core values are mentioned in our constitution. The first word that comes up, so I'll just read out. We, the people of India, lovingly, solemnly resolve to consider India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure all its citizens justice, and justice is written in capital letters, social, economic, and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. There are other things. So the first word is used is justice, and it flows from our culture. So when Krishna tells Arjun that it is your dharma to fight, it's some of us think that dharma means duty, but dharma means the fight for justice. Dharma means the fight for righteousness, and that fight will always be there. So that is the just cause. that and it's not that you have to actually pick up a gun and fight. You can do it with your writings also. You can do it with your talkings also. You can do it in your dealing with your colleagues, in dealing with your parents. You can do it in so many ways. I mean, and remember that justice has got a very it is we as human beings are inherently programmed to detect justice. uh, when you see justice while watching movies, even an evil man doing justice. I mean, if you see Sarkar Raj, Amitabh Bachchan, or if you see Sholay, where new generation, so I'll have to look at new movies. But if you see Ghazni, the hero is not a template of a typical hero that we used to see in the old days. I mean, he's not Purushottam Ram, or he's not. He is a guy who has decided that he has to achieve a purpose and destroy the evil. So, justice is a very big term, and we have to be very careful. And Mahabharat is one book that deals with every dilemma of justice, right from the day that Vidur told Dhritarashtra that this is going wrong, stop it. Justice is embedded into it. It's right from the start of the story till the end of the story. Every piece of justice and dilemma that you can face in life, in corporate life, in your daily dealings with your parents, is there in that book. So that is one thing that I wanted to tell you about Just Cause. Now, you have come out with your vision. You have come out with your purpose of your life. Now, what to do? What next? The next baby step is implementing it. And implementing it means you have to now get to sharpen your capabilities. Whatever capability, whatever strength you have identified, whatever vision you have made, that is the direction, that is the moral compass of your life throughout. You have to go in that direction. Don't deviate from there. Let come any storm, let anything happen. Don't deviate from there. You'll face a lot of opposition. You'll face a lot of peer group pressure. You will face a lot of superior pressures. Never deviate from there. And I tell you, you will never be harmed. I have my own life example. So I was 3 years into the Indian Army, and there was an event that happened in which I was told to give a wrong statement by a superior in a court of inquiry. And that wrong statement was actually not wrong. You know, nowadays it's very, I mean, it, it is politically correct to speak lies. So I did not realize that point of time that I should not have given it. It did not appear to me because I was just 3 months into it. My dad was in the army and he was a colonel, so I was serving under a colonel. And here there was a colonel who was advising me to tell something. I felt it's my father, it's my parent, and I did what I did. And things went southwards. I can't tell you about the details of the case; they are confidential. But and for no fault of mine, the decision came from the command headquarters that I have to be punished. Now, punishment means you get a black ink entry into your annual confidential report. That's bad. That's the end of your career. I mean, you will rise to a major or probably captain, not more than that. Now, there was one person. Uh, I don't know. God always has some plan for people who follow the right side. and he was a major then, and I worship him. He came and told me that, come here. He took me to his office. He said, "What's stopping you from telling the truth?" So I said, "Sir, I have always, I have considered him as my father, and he is telling me to do this, and he says that nothing will happen to me." He said, "Nothing doing. Whether something happens to you or not, you have to tell the truth. This will erode the very edifice on which you have taken that oath during your when you went into the army, that I will serve the nation to the peril of my life. I'll be bluntly truthful. I'll take care of my men." I mean, what are you doing? You're spoiling your career right from the start. Is this what you want throughout your life? So there were a trail of code of inquiries, and there was a summary of evidence. I mean, all these are technical terms, but in very simple terms, there is a section 180 in military law in which you sit in front of the accused. And so this was a colonel, and I was a lieutenant, just about 3 months of service. So that was the first time that I got courage, and that was the first time that I was blunt, and that was the first time that, and that is from where my life actually started. And till then, I was living like a vegetable. Okay, I had the passion to join army, etc., etc., but that was a turning point in my life, and I want to tell you this story because you will face such situations. And just before that court of inquiry, so that time the court of inquiry got elevated from, the presiding officer got elevated from the rank of a full colonel to a brigadier, because now it had become a fraud or lie or something of that sort. So under section 180, we are supposed to question each other, and if you would have seen that movie, A Few Good Men, if you have not noted down, just see it. All your concept of the justice will be absolutely clear. So in that, I spoke the truth. I spoke the truth in front of him. I looked straight into his eyes and spoke the truth. And that is what gave me courage throughout my life. And nothing happened to me. I tell you, his career was fixed. There was another guy who was party to this event. So we are in the army very disciplined, and we don't leave any indiscipline unpunished. His career was finished, and another guy who helped him out, say his career was finished. And after that, I got the courage that I can speak out anything, anywhere, in front of anybody, till the time I am sure that I'm serving my nation. If I'm doing it for my men, the nation comes first, the men you command comes next. If I'm doing these for these two lines, it doesn't matter to whom I'm speaking. I've spoken bluntly, and I've shouted at generals in open forums, and and all that was for a professional cause, and nowhere they were able to harm me. When I retired from the army, I was in my signals directorate, one section which deals with the strategic communication of India, and I was dealing with very sensitive projects. I mean, they never wanted to leave me. I was leaving before completing my 20 years because I had got fed up with the kind of bureaucratic things that the army had bound itself in, and the kind of things that were stopping us from. And just before that, I had the experience of Parakram. Can you imagine? During Kargil, we lost 527 people. Okay, that was a war, limited war, I will call it. It was not a full scale war. And during Operation Parakram, that happened after the December 13, 2001 attacks. We lost 700 men without going to a war. Without going to a war, we lost 700 men. Why? because when we put the mines, the mines are there under the ground, and there are tank mines and there are other mines and all that, and there were huge casualties because of the mine blast practice. Our own side getting those casualties. There were a number of places where mobilizations took place in such fast speed, and tanks and columns were moved in such parts for fast speeds that people got injured and they lost their lives. So uh, that Parakram was again a eye opener, and that what and after Parakram, the entire leadership, which was above me, I openly speak about it, and I don't care about. There's the truth, and I want the young generation to know about it. The entire senior leadership felt there'll never be another war. But then there was surgical strikes which happened. There was Palakot which happened. Today we have recaptured 30 heights from Chinese, which we had never, which could we could never think in 1993 when I joined the army. I mean, we were afraid of Chinese. I remember the one incident in which there was a briefing going on, and I will not name people, but a General Saab was sitting there who later became the Chief of Army Staff. And the briefing went in that, okay, sir, one of our patrol vents, it was intercepted by a Chinese patrol. Long range patrols generally, they take a long tour, and it takes about 30-35 days to come back. So they don't have any communications back. But whenever they reach a point where there is a landline available or something, they give back some inputs. So this long range patrol gave them input that they intercepted a Chinese patrol. This was in eastern Ladakh, and the Lieutenant Saab, who was leading this party of 35 people. Patrol is a group of men who are self-contained with food and everything, and so the Chinese officer had slapped him and had taken his Ray-Ban away. And I was sitting in the operations room that time. So I was in the electronic warfare. We also used to have our briefing and all that. And the general officer says, okay, okay, चलो यार ठीक है, कुछ और तो नहीं किया ना. I felt blood burning inside me. I felt like, what is this, yaar? I mean, a nation like Vietnam defeated China in 1979. They gave them a bloody nose. And here in Northern Command, we are sitting with an army which is larger than the entire combined army of Europe. We can't face China with grit. So that is one thing that experience teaches you. So once your visions are clear, your everything is clear, and so when I came to army headquarters, then I thought that probably I won't be able to change the system. Sometimes, and it's right also. The army cannot be changed overnight. We used to have a chief. We used to say General Padmanabhan, who was the chief during Parakram. I really respect him a lot, and he used to say that we will change the way we change. It's a big organization, and you cannot change it overnight. So we will change the way we change. That is what he said, and it will change slowly, and it has changed now. And look at it. We have captured 30 posts. Razangla, where my dad's unit fought a bloody war, and where we killed 1,310 soldiers of Chinese, and ours we lost 114 with just 50 bullets per. You know what is the bullet consumption during a intense hot war? The bullet consumption is per soldier we should have more than 1,000 bullets. We just had 50 bullets per soldier, and yet we killed 1,300 of those guys. Okay, so we have some of the best soldiers in the world, and that is why when today people speak, they ask me a lot of questions on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the only social site that I'm on, so they ask me a lot of questions. What will happen now? Will China? I said this is mountain warfare. You know, Tora Bora, Osama bin Laden. the most wanted man of America. How did he escape from there despite having traced his satellite phone? He went into Pakistan despite US conducting 100 bombing sorties, with each sortie dropping 17 tons of bomb. Rafale can carry just 9 tons. None of our other aircrafts can carry more bombs. But 17 tons of bomb per sortie and 100 sorties. They leveled the entire cave and 5 kilometers around it. Okay, yet they could not kill him. He escaped into Pakistan. He lived, and in 2011, it took such a lot of efforts and such a lot of intelligence and the entire might of the CIA and the American and Israeli intelligence detected him. Anyway, so what I was telling you is that you have to have persistence, you have to take initiative, you have to have ethics. When I say ethics, ethics is connected to justice, to just cause. So ethics come out of just cause, and ethics, there are a lot of ethical lessons in Mahabharata. Then you have to have commitment. I'll tell you this once. Okay, ma'am, how much time is left now?
Sir, we are almost done, but you can carry on, sir. No issues at all, sir.
Okay, so I
You can
will
carry
try
on,
to.
sir.
Okay, okay, okay. Will you give me maybe it is 12:19. Just give me about till 12:25. I'll try and
Right,
finish.
sir. Right, sir. Right, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, ma'am. So commitment means once you have taken a commitment to do a thing, you don't deviate. Once you have decided it, that decision is taken. And there was a small experiment conducted in Britain, in which a group of small children were given marshmallows. And this is a famous marshmallow experiment. You just put it on Google, you'll find it. They were given a very difficult problem to solve, which the teacher knew that they will not be able to solve. And after and the teacher said that I'm going out for some work, and you can eat the marshmallows after the problem has been solved. Marshmallows, they are the toffees. And he went out. And so after about 10-15 minutes, about 50% of the people had eaten the marshmallows. They could not solve the problem. In the end, so the instructor returned after 3 hours. By the time he returned, everybody else had left. There was only one girl who was still there, and she had not had the marshmallow. And then after that, this experiment concluded there itself. I mean, they never told these children what they are going to do next, but this guy followed these children for next 20 years. And the girl turned out to be a very successful. I do not have the details. I am still trying to find out what happened to, I mean, what she. But she turned out to be a very successful person in life. Very, very happy, and I would say joyful person in life, because she understood that value of doing a thing, because there is a kind of a tacit understanding between students and the teacher, that once a teacher gives you a task, that it is your commitment to complete it. So remember it, that commitment is very important. You should have empathy. There's a small story here also. Empathy means understanding somebody else's problem, putting yourself into their shoes, and then trying to solve the problem for them. Maybe you'll not be able to solve that problem. Maybe you'll just be able to speak to that person person in a way that actually inspires him, or motivates him, or takes him out of that bad state of mind that he is in. And so I will not tell the story. I will leave it for the next extended session whenever we sing. And to end with it, your this tangible program. Never leave your dreams unfinished. So your vision is your dream, and never leave it unfinished. So it is once you decided you have come to this stage and whatever we have talked so far, you should live your life like it is a marathon, not a sprint. You don't live your life as if my second semester, my third semester, my fourth semester. Forget about it. You pursue the excellence. You be the best in what you are, and automatically things will start falling in place. That is what our young generation, that is what Macaulay did to our education system, that has spoiled generations and generations of Indians, and they have made them babus, clerks. I mean, today even I'm sorry to state, but when I used to get freshers in Tata's 8 years freshers, Bell, I used to get from some of the best institutions, IIT, ISC Bangalore, VIT, Shasta University, IIT Madras, Anna University, IIT Mumbai, IIT Guwahati. But I tell you, the bachelors who used to come, they have not been, they have not applied themselves. You see, you get a lot of opportunities in your college to go inside your labs and apply yourself. So whatever knowledge you have learned, apply it. I mean, you have got so many tools nowadays. I mean, there are so many things that are there in software. There are so many things that are there in material science. There are so many things. Maybe we do not have as good a lab as the US people are having it, because we are not such a rich country. But still, you can apply it. Take out something. Decide a project every semester. Decide a project that this is one small project that I'm going to do. Whether it is given as a thing, but and let it be linked to your vision. Let it be linked in some way to your vision. So always, so in this marathon, you will keep on having these small joyful moments. So when in Commandos, last day of the Commandos, when we have 42, sorry, I've reached 12:25, just give me 5 more minutes. So 42 kilometer run, at the end of it, we used to feel real good. We used to feel so elated. But every kilometer we used to cross, we used to enjoy it. That journey was very important. So enjoy the journey. Then working in corporate, okay, it is a very, my suggestion is there that you take masters and go. Nowadays, bachelor's is doesn't give you that kind of a position from where you can actually live your dreams. So doing a master's degree, if you can, don't get into a job after bachelor's. I generally discourage people, because bachelor's, you are too busy in learning complex things. Your brain is not yet aligned to the world. And when you see the corporate life immediately after bachelor's, you get dejected, because corporate life is not what you actually thought it would be. Go for internships, many of them, but don't join a job. If possible, if your university permits, then take your last semester as a, which I used to do in Tata's. I used to take a lot of students. Their entire last semester used to be a industry project. So if that is possible, that can be done. Selection of your dream company. So after you do all this, you have completed a master, you have to select your dream company. Select a dream company very carefully. It should be absolutely aligned to your likings. You should feel every day in the morning, when you get up, you should feel, I have to go and work there, and I have to do something good today. You should come in with a smiling face. You should build trust with your colleagues. You should sharpen your knowledge. There'll be differences. Be vocal. Speak your gut feelings out. Nobody will harm you for that. I've never been harmed. I've spoken to the chief of the vice, the current chief, and the earlier he was the vice chief, and that time I was out of the industry, and I was speaking to him. I told him, you don't have communications to go inside enemy territory. There is a parliamentary resolution which says that, and this is the tone in which I spoke. Okay. That there is a parliamentary resolution that says that you have to take back POK, Gilgit, Baltistan, and Aksai Chin, and you don't have the forward edge communication good. He took the point very seriously. I thought that he'll admonish me, but it was a professional point. It was coming out with, and it was a 15 minutes long proof that I gave. So you will be at some point of time leaders, you'll be at some point of time followers. When you are a leader, the buck stops at you. You take the risks. You own the responsibility. You set the stone. Set the stone with courage and boldness, and rapidly move whatever group you are leading. Rapidly move into a storming mode. They teach this in leadership classes: norming, storming, forming modes, where initially you just get introduced, then you break your formal relationships, and then storming means I can come inside your room, I can thump your desk and tell, sir, what the bullshit you are doing. This will like for in case of army, I will tell, sir, this is a sure kill for all the people who are going in. Why are you doing this? So that is the kind of team you should have, where your junior most guy should be able to shout at you and tell you that you are doing wrong. And that comes out of trust. So you have to build trust. And when you are followers, don't think that followers are followers only. Followers are leaders of themselves. We can have tacit leadership within the followers also. A group of people who are or there is a main leader, but within the followers there can be self-created leadership, which is 100%, has got full 100% integrity of following, and never leave your colleagues exposed. Never lose their trust. They are the biggest asset you will have. That is what we learned in the army, and that is some relationships that have that gives us strength. When everything fails, when we are in turmoil, they are the ones who help us out. And you can draw a lot of lessons from Purushottam Ram's life. I mean, he gave up his everything. He gave up his wife, he gave up his kingdom, he gave up his palace, he gave up his he went into a fight with his own children. He went, invaded Lanka, got his wife back, again got separated with her. He gave the kingdom back to the brother of the same guy who had taken his wife away, and yet he maintained his moral and ethical standards. That is what I am talking about, the man Ram. I am not talking about that Lord Ram that we speak about. Then the need of the defense forces. Quickly, I'll give out AI, artificial intelligence. We need a lot of it. We need sensors and radars. We need quantum computing and quantum communications. We need power systems which can sustain for 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours in small form factor. We need Internet of Things for connected soldier, and we need the 5G, certain components of 5G like low latencies, etc. We need unmanned aerial and ground systems. We need nanomaterials. We need hypersonics, missile defense, electronic warfare, signal intelligence, cyber warfare, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these things. There are so many things that defense forces need. The young startups which are there, all of them are giving us a lot of good solutions and their thing. And then lastly, I would, before concluding, I'll just tell you that you have a successful future ahead. Don't be worried about it. That's the last worry. You make yourself self-contained first. You yourself become a force to reckon with. A person who is seen as your colleagues tell that, okay, if I have a problem, I'll go to him. So there are unlimited opportunities. Our nation stands at a crossroads. We have the highest number of young people in the world, and we are already a software giant. And with the kind of money that has gone in during the corona incidents, the all these broadband companies have expanded like anything, and they are looking into newer technologies, newer applications. The manufacturing sector is moving out of China. It is moving into vastly into Korea and Southeast Asian countries, and also into India. There is a lot of indigenization effort by Atmanirbhar Bharat. There will be a lot of startups which are being supported. There are wonderful startups where you can go in. There are guys I know of and I work offline with who are working in things that I had never heard, like quantum neural networks. This terminology was strange to me. And there are large infrastructure projects which will come up now, looking at the defense of the country. So, in civil design, in material science, everywhere there'll be a lot of. So, remember, the core value of Indian civilization is what our genetics is made of. Our core values are deeply rooted in our two epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata. I don't say that they are the only ones, but there are lessons which can be drawn from them, which are de-linked with religion. So whether it is a Muslim, whether it is a Christian, whether it is anybody else, you can draw lessons from them. Our core values are centered around the idea of justice, dharma, dharma. Dharma is our core value. Both these epics are predated all Indian religion and all religion of the world. We have a 17,000 years of disturbed existence. And those are our national heritages. There are so many mythologies we can take help of while you are deciding your first 2, 3 baby steps. And with that, I would like to wish you all the best in your career. You can get me on LinkedIn. I never refuse a call from any youngster. Any foolish question, any good question, any bad question, any hard question, anything that you want to ask me, I'm open to that. And never keep things to yourself. Never try to be what you are not, and you will be a successful person in life. Thank you very much.